Welcome to Legal Studies, and today we're going to learn about the purposes of committal proceedings. Where are we in the study design? Well, here we are here, the purposes of committal proceedings. We've just finished learning about Victoria Legal Aid and community legal centres. And so really what we're going to learn about today, committal proceedings, is one of the key steps that happens before you have your criminal trial. So this whole area of study is about the journey towards a trial, what happens before a trial, what happens during a trial, what happens after a trial. Well, this is one of the key steps that happens before you get to have your day in court, committal proceedings. So what do you need to know about it? First of all, you need to be able to explain what a committal proceeding is. Second of all, you need to be able to explain what the purpose of this is. So why do we do this thing? Let's dive deeper then into what a committal proceeding is. As I said before, a committal proceeding is one of the steps that we take before a trial. It's a pre-trial process for indictable offences only, so we only do them for the serious offences. And it's essentially like a mini trial. It happens usually about 8 to 9 months after the person's been arrested or charged. At that stage, the prosecution should have enough time to have gathered some evidence, and a magistrate in the magistrate's court uses the committal hearing at this stage to check, is there enough evidence for us to go ahead and have a real trial? So it's sort of like a filtering process. At this stage in the committal hearing, if the case is strong, the magistrate says, yep, let's go ahead, let's have a real trial in the county or Supreme Court. And if the magistrate says, no, the case is weak, there's not enough evidence here, then it's discharged and the accused person gets to walk free, essentially. So if I were to draw a little timeline up here for you, we might start with the person being arrested and charged with a particular offence. The prosecution and police gather evidence, start to prepare the case for a few months. Here we'd have our committal hearing, which is the sort of end point of the committal proceedings that we're learning about. So we'd have our committal hearing here, which is where the prosecution would present their evidence to the magistrate, call witnesses, have them cross-examined. The magistrate would then make a decision, all right, is this case weak or strong? All right, if they decide there's enough evidence, we'll go to trial. If they decide there's not enough evidence to convict this person, then the person is discharged. That's our little timeline up here. Diving a little bit deeper into what the committal hearing actually looks like. As I said before, it's like a mini trial. And so what that means is the prosecution will literally call witnesses. They'll physically attend court in the magistrate's court. Those witnesses will verbally give their evidence. They can be cross-examined by the defendant if the defence wants to. The defence can even call witnesses if they want to. They don't have to. And at the end of it all, the defence can choose to make a submission to the court about whether or not the case should be discharged. So some criticisms of this whole process. As I said, it's like a mini trial. It can be hugely time-consuming, a waste of time, a lot of people say. You're calling witnesses in, they're giving evidence, they're being cross-examined. This can be really traumatic for people. And then, on top of it all, if the magistrate decides there's enough evidence here, then you go to a trial and it all happens again. All right, this can be a really big waste of time. So an alternative to this is called committal via hand-up brief. And this is where this whole mini trial process of the committal hearing is replaced by a document called the hand-up brief. It's like a written summary of all of the evidence that the prosecution are going to bring. And that can be a much more efficient way of doing this committal proceedings process. But that's actually relatively rare still in Victoria. A lot of cases are still heard via this physical, in-person, verbal committal hearing process. So that can be quite a waste of time. There's been a lot of criticisms of that in our legal system. So what's the purpose of doing this? This, as I just said, it's a really time-consuming, sometimes wasteful process. So surely there's got to be a reason why we do it. Well, there are a few important reasons. As I said, probably the most important one is to decide whether there is sufficient evidence to support a conviction of this person. So in other words, as I said before, it's a filtering process. This is where we get rid of the weak cases and we only allow the strong cases to continue. Except, unfortunately, the vast majority of cases are determined to have enough evidence at this stage to continue on to a real trial. Hardly any of them are discharged. Very few cases are discharged. So we might question whether or not this purpose is really achieved. Other important purposes, though, of committal proceedings are a really important purpose here is to make sure that the prosecution has actually disclosed its case. They are required to tell the accused person at this stage what the evidence is, what the witnesses are going to say, and things like that. And that makes sure the accused person is not surprised when it comes to the trial. So that's one of the ways we ensure that there's a fair trial, by making sure the accused person is not disadvantaged by a trial by surprise. It also gives the accused person an opportunity to plead guilty if they want at an early stage, or to see the evidence in front of them and plead not guilty. So there are purposes to this committal proceeding process, but it's highly criticised as well as a process in our legal system. And that's it for committal proceedings.